Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of HBO's Dune Prophecy entitled Sisterhood Above All. Sorry my voice is a little bit off, kind of working through a cold. It never really fully came on, but I've been coughing, so my voice is a little hoarse. But I need to get out and talk about this episode because in my video for episodes 1 and 2, I said that this show felt like it was off to a slow start, and I'm fully prepared to double down on that assessment right now. Like, after 2 episodes that felt largely like setup, we spend the majority of the 3rd episode rehashing and expanding on information that we already knew, while the present day plotline essentially just stood entirely in place. And generally, I like and enjoy episodes like these that take a break from the action and fill in backstory. But when you only have 6 episodes to work with and you haven't done a ton in the first 2, an episode like this is pretty unwelcomed. Especially when I feel like the hour wasn't even spent that wisely. Like, okay, so for example, this episode is replete with moments meant to show us how Valia's mindset differs from mostly everyone else. Dorothea, some of the other sisters in the Sisterhood, even her family. Did we need to waste an episode on that? Like, did anyone watching this feel like they learned something new or valuable about Valia that they didn't already know? Because I thought it was already very obvious in the first episode that Valia saw things differently from mostly everyone else. Yet, Valia has 7 rants, several, it could have been 7, several rants in this episode about how she thinks everyone else is complacent in allowing House Atreides to essentially besmirch the name of House Harkonnen. Excuse me, like I said, cough. It's a dry cough too, that's what's messing my voice up. Another thing I didn't like about this episode, I also mentioned in my first video that this show feels more like Game of Thrones or Star Wars than it does Dune. This episode seemed to almost lean into that. Like, this didn't feel like Dune at all. And the uniqueness of the films and what I felt that those films brought to the genre and to cinema as a whole is a large part of why I love them so much. Like, this episode opens with the Harkonnen family having been banished to another planet called Lankavel, which doesn't not sound like Winterfell. And it looks like, the location looks like north of the wall. They're all dressed like wildlings. Not to mention that Valia more often than not looks like Sansa did in the later seasons of Game of Thrones. And if that wasn't spot on enough, her uncle is played by Mark Addy, who was Robert Baratheon on Game of Thrones. And if that's not enough for you, the little boy that Tula helps in the flashback scenes is the actor who played Oscar Tully on House of the Dragon. So it's like it almost feels intentional at this point. It's like they said, we want to make something that's going to be like Game of Thrones, but we want to give it a Dune name so we can bring in those fans too. And they didn't even seem particularly interested in making a Dune TV show that complements the film series at all. Speaking of Tula's flashbacks, though, they felt even more like Game of Thrones than the Winterfell scenes that I was just talking about. Like, why did those scenes feel so medieval? Like, you got people on horseback, you got Tula carving up animals, even on the ice planet, you got whales being skinned. Like, the woods that Tula was in, they look like the place on Dagobah that Yoda trained Luke in the first Star Wars movie. Like, the films, the Dune films, built a world that I found to be interesting and thought-provoking. This show feels so far detached from that world that, again, I can't help but feel like they just wanted to capitalize on the popularity of the Dune films, so they slapped its name on a TV show that bears little resemblance to the films that we love in order to get people to watch it, rather than making something that builds on the established universe. To further prove that point, that they're not really concerned with expanding on the Dune universe, why is modern day American slang in this show? I'll tell you why. It's because no one wants to make a fucking Dune TV show. That's why. They're just making a show and calling it Dune to get people to watch it who are fans of Dune. Like, there's a scene where Dorothea, insults Valia. And then, in the next scene, in a moment of private, someone says to Valia, she had no call to read you like that. Read you like that? Like they're getting ideas from the script from fucking TikTok or some shit? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? And I'm going to keep making this point as long as it continues to be true. do they have any interest in making a TV show that complements the established world of the Dune films, or do they want to just make whatever the fuck they want, name some characters Atreides and Harkonnen, slap the name Dune on it, and just fuck off? And it really feels like it's the second thing that they want to do. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today, Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there, so this is the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not gonna lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film, and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. So let's get into what happened this week, and the bulk of this episode is spent in the past, filling in a bit of the backstory on the rivalry between House Atreides and House Harkonnen. In the opening scenes of episode 1, we learned that House Atreides was essentially celebrated for helping to win the war against the machines, and that House Harkonnen was looked at as deserters. In this episode, we see the Harkonnen family on a planet that doesn't not resemble Hoth from Star Wars. And they're, like I said, they're cutting off and slicing up fuzzy whale blubber. I don't know. We also meet Valia and Tula's brother, Griffin. While the rest of Valia's family seems content to kind of like just roll with the punches and allow themselves to be treated any old kind of way, Valia chides their complacency and wants to go after Vorian Atreides specifically. And Griffin, her brother, agrees with her. And then we cut to Griffin dead. And like, I didn't even necessarily like need to see him die. It was just like funny how they did it. He's like, yeah, all right, we're gonna take care of this. Cut, dead. And I don't think laughter is what they were going for there, but it's what they achieved. And then Valia just tells us that Vorian's the one who killed Griffin, or at least she's holding him accountable for it, because why show me something that would be interesting when you could just tell us about it and just keep making more Game of Thrones? But unsurprisingly, she wants vengeance. There were a series of scenes that I think were a little muddled, but I think intentionally so to hide the twist. We learned that Tula was sent to infiltrate House Atreides and murder Vorian and every other Atreides on Dagobah, which she did using a toxin from an animal that in a scene that we learned about earlier with Oscar Tully. And she does this after he kind of like proposes to her, and then they have sex. And even that sex scene was weird. Like I talked about the other sex scene being like it was shoehorned in. This one, it like cut back and forth between the sex and I don't know, the Atreides practicing witchcraft. I don't know. They didn't do much to explain that. But like, why were those scenes cut together like that? Like, it just felt like somebody said, like, we're supposed to do it this way, rather than thinking of why they should do it that way. Admittedly, though, that last piece is me being a bit nitpicky, but it's like, once I'm annoyed, it's easier to just continue to annoy me further, and clearly I was annoyed by that point in the show, that I was like, yeah, I'm going to put this shit in my notes regardless, even though I acknowledge myself that it is nitpicky. But while Tula was off seducing people and then killing them like a praying mantis, we get a whole bunch of scenes showing us the ideological differences and beef between Valia and Dorothea. Here's the problem with those scenes. We already saw Valia make Dorothea kill herself. That's the best possible example that you could give for their differences, and it is the end of the differences. Like that's the culmination. That's it. It's over. That's you can't go beyond that. The show had already established how they differed and why they differed, and they played it out to its proper conclusion, which was Dorothea's death. I didn't need a whole nother episode going like, see how much they disagreed and how jealous Dorothea was? See? Like, I didn't need that. Like, this show had already adequately showcased their disagreement and put an exclamation point on it and underlined it in italics with the murder. The scenes of this episode would have worked a lot better before Dorothea was killed. As it stands now, I'm watching these scenes like, okay, I already know this. Like, I already understand this. Let's get on with it. And that's this show's ultimate problem, really. It still feels like it's in setup mode, and we're halfway through the season now. Like, how do you spend most of an entire episode beating a dead horse when you only have 6 to use? Like, the most interesting thing that I got out of these scenes was the moment when Valia accidentally used the voice on Raquella. I liked learning that at this point it had only happened before by accident when she showed Griffin. She said, so like, she told him to swim when he was drowning and he didn't even know how to swim. Like, I thought that was a cool little anecdote, right? And then I liked learning that this was essentially the forging of the relationship that would fuel Dorothea's jealousy. I didn't like Raquel explaining the genetic manipulation plan again because, again, we're already clear on that. Also, the makeup job on her is like 1980s horror movie bad, but whatever, moving on. Ultimately, we reach a point where Valia and Dorothea are to go through the agony together. I feel like my voice is getting better as I talk. Valia bails, and then seizing the opportunity, Dorothea just tilts her head back like, yeah, hit me with the drops, ma'am. But Valia gets confirmation from Tula that Vorian Atreides and all the rest of them have been properly taken care of. And in another ridiculous moment, her family proceeds to blame her for what Tula did. Like, without even really explaining how that's justifiable. Culminating in a moment where we're led to believe that Valia may use the voice to kill her own mother. She doesn't do it, but here's what I thought in that moment. Why does Valia officially only have this one move to kill somebody where she can direct people to do whatever she wants? Like, even in this same episode, she made one of the sisters in the Sisterhood slap the other one, made the other one made them face each other. Yeah, every time it's time to kill someone, she's making them take out their blade and hold it to their neck. Like, why does everyone always have a blade on them to abide by that command? Like, as soon as she said, take out your blade, I'm like, no fucking way. Again? The same kill, the same way she did Dorothea, the same way last week we saw her in modern day try to kill Desmond. So she ain't even, like, from childhood till old lady, she's using take out your blade and insert it into your neck or thrust it into your neck, whatever she said. She been using that shit her whole life. Like, she can't make someone jump off a cliff or smash their head with a mallet, bite off their tongue, have someone else break somebody else's neck. Like, she can only do take out your blade and drive it into your throat. Like, are those the only sentences that she knows in voice? Like I'm joking, but like only partially, and then really I'm not joking at all. Like, it just feels like yet another example of this show taking shortcuts or pissing away time. Like, the film series, I know I'm going back there again, push the envelope beyond anything that has been done in cinema to this point. But Valia only has one finishing move? Like, you couldn't think of anything else? Nothing? Like, is this like Hallmark movie plots? Like, we got to bring in more minds to get a second idea? And to be perfectly honest, I'd be fine if they establish like a limited amount of ability. Like, if Valia can only do so much while she's working on it. Like, the only thing I can do in voice is make people pull out their blades. But, like, you have to establish that for me to buy it, and they haven't. They've had her doing all sorts of shit with the voice. She can make people turn and look at each other, which is, like, the most basic fucking thing I would think that you could make somebody do. And then she can make them kill themselves, which feels like the most advanced fucking thing that you could do. And it's like they have all sorts of these ideas on what she can do until it's time for her to kill somebody, and then they only got the one. And that's why this show is failing for me right now. It's nothing like the films. Where the films excel, this show fails. Rarely pushing the boundaries of creativity, rarely feeling original, mostly feeling like a cheap imitation of other successful franchises. And it just seems to take the easy and predictable route at every fork in the road. At the end of the day, it's a very unimpressive show to me. And I chose that word carefully. Like, it's not bad, shitty, it's not a negative word. It's unimpressive. When the films are monumentally impressive. Oh yeah, Tula is keeping Lila alive in the basement in some secret contraption. Big whoop. But again, am I tripping? Like, do I not have any cause to read them like this? Like, let me know what you thought in the comments, and until next week, peace.